Hi, this is Ken Wolf, Artistic Director of Manhattan Repertory Theater, speaking to you from New York City. And this is the Playwriting Podcast. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you are continuing to write your amazing plays. Episode story topic, Playwriting Secrets I Learned from Play Production. So today we're going to have some fun, and I'm going to share with you the secrets that I have learned about playwriting from producing and directing theater. The cool thing about this is once you know these principles of play production, you will be better able to write a compelling play. Because we always have to go back to that thing that a play is a live emotional experience. You're not writing a written thing. You're writing this live, exciting, ridiculously wonderful adventure that people are going to go on with you in the theater. It's a live experience, a live emotional experience, which is so much fun and it's so exciting and things happen. Oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. The first principle of play production that will transform your playwriting forever is trim down your words. So this is a really important principle, and I've talked about this many, many times on editing your play. But a live emotional experience is very different than something that is written on the page. When you're in a live emotional experience, you see things, you feel things, you experience the story. You're not reading the story. So when you read a play and there are a lot of words, when you're reading the play, you're not really aware that there are too many words until you give it to actors and they start to bring it to life. So this comes up all the time in my production work where we get into production, we go, oh my God, there's too many words in this scene. Wow, isn't this interesting? Even when we were doing Rorschach, we did a lot of dramaturgy work on Rorschach. But the last week of production, we cut, which was wild. But basically, as we were watching the whole play put together, I could see that we didn't need all these words. We didn't even need this information at the end. We just didn't need it. So we just cut and trimmed and we made it perfect. And we got some awesome reviews. As you know, we got on the 10 best list for 2024 from theaterscene.org, and it was just an amazing thing to happen. But one of the reasons why it happened is that we did the work to trim down the words. And I know as a playwright, we love our words. We think we're so witty and clever and great, but it has to serve the play. And you have to remember when something is brought to life, the reality is more concise than it is on the page, like 99.9% of the time. I don't know a new play that I have developed and worked on where I didn't trim out lines with the playwright to make it work. And a couple of times I've done a couple plays where the playwright didn't want me to trim out the lines. I don't do that anymore. The play suffered for it, and my work suffered for it. So it's really important to, go through your play when you're working with the actors and hear your lines and go, my God, I'm saying that 3 times. Happens all the time. I've said this probably 300 times to you, but sometimes playwrights will say the same thing in one sentence 3 times. So just pick one. But it's really important to trim down the words in your play, especially when it's going into production, because live is wonderful and it's okay to breathe on stage and not have words happening. It's okay for words not to be spoken the entire time that a play is going on. We played with this a lot in Point Loma in terms of silences, which was really fun, and I love that. I love silence on stage. I think it's a powerful and super fun thing. But you gotta cut down your words, Like if your play does get picked up for production, work with them and say, look, I want to go through this and edit it down a little more. Maybe go to the first reading, or have a reading before the first rehearsal and go through it and just trim it down. And then give them permission in rehearsal, the director and the actors, the creative team, to take out words and things that don't work. Because you may like something, but when it's brought to life, it doesn't work. And I've seen this happen again and again and again. And when you take it out, it works. So, some people think that I just like to cut things. And I do. I like to cut things that don't work. And I will always do my very best to cut things that don't work. My favorite thing is when I can cut out a page or when I can cut out a scene. That's the greatest thing. If I cut out a scene, you know what? We don't need that scene. In Point Loma, there was half a scene that we didn't need, so we took it out. And Tim was great. He said, do what you will. Just let me know what you're doing. So we did that. We just took it out. Boom. We didn't need it. We had to get to the climax of the play. The play was moving at this breakneck pace, and boy, we had to get to it. So we cut out half that scene. And we just put in the important little bit of a scene so that we could understand that she left her phone there. So at the end, she can come back and she can hit the serial killer on the head with a wine bottle, who supposedly dies, but he doesn't die. He comes back and he tries to kill somebody again immediately, like in all horror movies, which is the greatest thing ever. And then he gets stabbed with his own hypodermic needle. It's fantastic. It's super fun. But you gotta trim down your words. It is so important. And let me stop there because I could go on and on and on and on and on with my words. The second thing that I've learned from production that can transform your playwriting is this. There needs to be action between your characters at all times. Every single moment that your play is alive and happening, there needs to be action between your characters. And if there isn't, there needs to be events happening around the characters. Because action between the characters and events around the characters creates focus. Now, I've talked about this before, but I'm going to go through it again. In a film, the filmmaker's lens creates the focus. On stage, you don't have that opportunity to zoom in on anything. So the only way that you can create focus is to have action between the characters. People look when something's happening between the characters. People will say, my God, what's happening with these two? Wow. Or you can have things happen around the characters, like a glass breaks, or somebody throws a rock through the window, or something blows up, or things like that, or something appears magically. In Point Loma, a picture falls off the wall, or the drawers start moving by themselves. Wow, that's an event. Whoa, let's look at those drawers. Crazy fun. But this is really important. You cannot have time on stage where there's just talk or backstory because the audience will check out. In Point Loma, we had a little bit of areas where Tim had some important backstory they wanted to get into the play. So what we did during those important backstory moments, we had like the drawers move silently and no one saw it except for the audience. Or we had a ghost appear above the set while that was going on. So that while they were getting that backstory, they're going, what is going on here? My God, that's kind of ghost. What? This is wild. Can you understand what I'm saying? For if we didn't do that, they would just go, why are they telling me this story? Like, why is the play almost stopping to get this story, right? But it was great. So we did all these little ghosty things around just a little bit of information about Point Loma and the history of this, hospice house, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it worked. So we got the backstory in, but we had things happening around it. And that is what works. So it's really important when you build your play. I invite you to build an emotional event map. Check out my other podcast to learn more about the emotional event map. Okay, it's really important that you plot out all the action and the events that happen in every scene so that there is always focus. I cannot emphasize this enough, and I'll say it again. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is the most important skill in playwriting, the ability to keep your audience focused on stage. The third playwriting secret that I've learned from play production is this, and this kind of links up to the last one, is to do backstory in fights. Now, backstory can be a little bit important to some plays, but you can't stop the play in order to have backstory. That's why we did that in Point Loma. Didn't stop the play. We had some ghosty stuff happening. Boy, this is kind of a scary house. Great, we got it. But another great way to do backstory is to have a fight. When we did Past Perfect by Rita Lewis, who is the greatest. We love Rita Lewis. She is the writer of Rorschach and all these other plays that I've done with her. She is a rock star. And we're actually doing a Western by Rita Lewis next year. I'm so excited about it. It's called The Fallen. It is going to rock. But anyway, let's talk about backstory and fights. Past Perfect started where a mother and a daughter are having a fight. And it's the greatest thing. It's like a mother-daughter fight and this and that. And, she wants her to go to dance class and she doesn't. A whole bunch of crazy stuff's going on. And during that fight, you learned everything about their relationship. So beautifully orchestrated by Rita Lewis. So beautifully done. And also, it's a great way to start a play. So if you have backstory you have to get in, do it in a fight or do something happening around it where, there's things happening around it so then they can get the backstory. Because if you just do the backstory, it's just going to stop the play. And it's going to feel like you're telling the audience. I have a podcast episode, I don't know the number of it, where I call it backsplaining. You don't want to do any backsplaining in your plays. You want to put breadcrumbs in, do it around action so that the audience will get it. This is really important. You don't have to tell the audience anything. You have to put it into this live emotional experience called the play that never stops. One of the cool things about Rorschach and about Point Loma, a lot of people said, and they're so very different plays, but a lot of people said, wow, this play really moved. It's really fast paced and wow, I kept my focus the whole time. And it's funny because these two plays are totally different. Point Loma was this adventure, with ghosts and podcasters and trying to find out the mystery and ghosty things happening, all this crazy stuff, a lot of events happening on stage, not just inside, but outside events, where Rorschach was all these inside events where people were having breakdowns on stage and were learning things and people were fighting on stage and all these crazy, wonderful things were happening. But when I put them together, I made sure that there was always something happening on stage and also it was moving. It was pulling the audience along for the ride. And both these plays got awesome reviews. And that is why, because that was my intention with Rorschach to have these inner events, these big, bold, exciting, inner, crazy events. And with Point Loma to really do these big events around the backstory, big events happening. And in the midst of these events happening in this play, and there are so many events, it's still mind-boggling when I think about it. But around all those events, we got the backstory of the podcasters, we got the backstory of the house, we got the backstory of everything we needed to know. And that's what I love. So do backstory elegantly, put it in fights, put it in big events, make it happen underneath things, not around things, underneath things with breadcrumbs here and there so the audience can understand without you telling them. Playwriting secret I learned from play production, number 4. Fun is compelling and fun, so use fun. So fun is like the greatest thing on stage if you really make it fun for the actors and make it fun for the audience. So many times I've seen a play where people are laughing over something funny, and you can tell they're not really laughing, and it's not really funny, and they're not going far enough with the laughter. It's not really filled. It's not really happening. And I like to have fun events in plays, and I think, I love when something so funny that people fall over in laughter. And I've done that a number of times in my plays. And it's really funny because then the audience start to laugh because they're laughing and they keep laughing at the same joke, or they keep looking at each other and laughing and all these crazy, wonderful things. And as I mentioned before in Past Perfect by Rita Lewis, we had a pot smoking scene where these two smoke pot and they haven't smoked pot together for 20 years. And then they drink and they eat pretzels with ice cream, and we added all this stuff and we made this beautifully funny old friends getting stoned party where they eventually hook up and things get crazy and they fall onto the table on top of the ice cream and the pretzels in a wild, mad, passionate embrace. Fantastic. And then her daughter walks in. It's just the greatest bit ever. But we made it fun for the actors. My partner Jennifer Piero played in it and Jerry Glennon. And we just went so far with the fun that it was so compelling. It was just so much fun to watch. I sat in the booth because I love to run the show. I didn't run the show for Point Loma. I wish I did, but I couldn't because there were so many moving parts. But I love to watch the show. And I sat there laughing my head off every performance because they would just make up stuff or do things differently. And they had the freedom just to be nuts, but they knew the beats they had to get to the kiss and et cetera, et cetera. And it was fantastic. So I invite you to put fun in your play, but make it big fun. Make it big, delicious, wild, crazy, outrageous fun so that the audience will join in and go for the ride. It is fantastic when you do that. When it is fun for the actors, it is fun for the audience. So make the biggest, most fun events you can do and put them in your play, especially after maybe a sad moment, that a funny thing happened or things like that. I love that. I love where something happens and then it's funny and then something happens and it's funny and that's like life sometimes. Sometimes we can't deal with the drama and we make jokes. And I love that. But I invite you to go big and strong with the funny in your plays. And the 5th secret I learned about playwriting from play production, There is no such thing as a historical drama. Now, this is really important to learn because often playwrights will write an historical drama and they'll have the historical events be what they're trying to make, drive the play. This historical event happens, this war happens, and that's driving the play. But that doesn't work. So when you're thinking about writing an historical drama, you need to stop and write a drama that takes place in the past, in a different place. It's really important you have all the principles of playwriting in your, what you once thought was an historical drama. But it needs to be the events that happen between these characters. What is the problem of the play? Not the problem of the war, the problem of the times, or the problem of, that place where this historical drama is, right? It's not like the different, war events. No, it's the people struggling with these war events. What are their problems? What are they fighting for? What's going on between your characters? It's not the historical events. I cannot emphasize this enough. I have probably received 30 historical dramas over the years, and I had to say, hey, we need to have something happening between these characters. We need to have a character we follow. We don't just have to have these historical events. It is not compelling. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because we don't care about historical events. We care about people. We care about people and what they're going through. And even back then, whenever that is, people are people and they always go through the same sort of thing. We really haven't changed in hundreds and hundreds of years. There's a problem and we get stuck and we try to figure it out and then we solve it and we move on. Or we don't solve it and we give up. And that's an option too. But it's really important that you build a drama that takes place in historical time. You build it like a contemporary drama, where the character has a problem that needs to be solved. The problem escalates. It tops and gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then boom, we have a climax and then maybe a resolution. But you cannot use historical events be events in a play. It just doesn't work. So there are my first 5 playwriting secrets I learned from production. I'm going to be doing another podcast on this next week with 5 more because I think this is really important because everybody learns about playwriting. You can read books about playwriting. You could read my books, which are a little different. Check out the Complete Fantastic Play series on Amazon. It's a really good book because it talks about these production-based principles and more that nobody talks about. It's a live emotional experience. But I diverge. So I'll be doing that next week. So I hope this helps. Please check out ManhattanRep.com for all that I do. Check out all the amazing reviews for Point Loma. We had 7 amazing reviews for Point Loma. Check it out on our main page at ManhattanRep.com, along with our reviews for Rorschach and all our other reviews and all that we're doing. And check out our play production program. We build plays for playwrights and producers from around the world, and we do an amazing job. I am so committed to this work. I worked my tail off on Point Loma. There were so many moving parts, and it was so much fun, but boy, was it a lot of work.
But I like work in the theater. I love work in the theater. I love to be there. I love to build. I love to create. I love to make magic happen. I just do.
It is the joy of my life. And I love when things go wrong. And I go, wow. Like we had an actor just this past weekend who got sick. And I had to jump in on Saturday for 2 performances and play Hank the serial killer. And it was fantastic. And all of a sudden I'm in the play and I'm comatose for the first hour of the play. And then there's all these events. He wakes up, he's crazy, and then he ends up sneaking down, and then he goes to kill everybody at the end. It's fantastic. So I got to do the fights and all that kind of stuff. We worked it out just in time to make it work, and we had 2 wonderful productions. So I did everything on Point Loma, I even acted in it. But it is our joy to have a company like this that builds for playwrights and producers from around the world. So if you want to get your play produced, if you're sick of waiting, come to us and self-produce it with us. We'll look at your play, and if it's ready for prime time, we will put together a budget. If the budget works for you, we will book the theater, and we will bring it to life in Midtown Manhattan or anywhere in the world. But if you have the cash, stop waiting. If you don't have the cash, raise some money and make it happen. Filmmakers do it all the time. And when you get good reviews, you can sell your play further and all these awesome things will happen. Also, check out my Premier Playwriting Coaching. This is a 1-year program, and In this 1 year, I will work with you so that you can learn everything about playwriting. Everything. We'll build a compelling play that will be awesome. And then I will teach you about how to connect to theaters around the world. And then when your play is ready for prime time, you can bring it to Ken Wolf Literary and I'll help you get it out into the world. So check out my premier playwriting coaching at manhattanrep.com. And lastly, don't ever stop, don't ever stop, don't ever stop. This is Ken Wolf and this has been the Playwriting Podcast. I'll see you next time. You rock.